Hello and welcome to another review for film and game composers. I am Meena Shamaly, and today we are looking at Epic SoundLab's Octamorph Forge Edition. So this we have it up on the screen here as what it looks like, and what it actually is. Let's refer to their website and check it out. So this is their official product page, and the description here is: it is an 8-layer cross-morphing instrument and sound design tool for building complex soundscapes, morphing drones, shape-shifting risers, and much more. So, it's a pretty, I suppose it's very descriptive and kind of tells you what to expect out of it. But as to how it works is what we're going to look at in the video. So we'll look at all the features and the content. So requirements are the full version of Native Instruments Kontakt 5.1 or higher. I think we're at Kontakt 5.5 was the last update recently. And if you don't, it won't work on the free player, on the free Kontakt player. So if you don't have the full version of Kontakt, I urge you to go get it because its benefits far outweigh the price, if you know what I mean. As in, it's very, over the years, it'll prove well worth the money you spend. So so this Octamorph requires approximately 900 megabytes of free disk space and 2 gigabytes of RAM. So, pretty standard operating procedure for most things. And an internet connection for product download. So you get emailed a bunch of zipped files. I think it's one zip file though. And just extract it and put it to the directory of your choice. Pretty simple thing for Kontakt. And then access it from Kontakt itself. Just point Kontakt to the directory and pull it there. So that's the techie stuff, and $59 US is the purchase price, which for a sound design kind of tool, I think it's quite an okay price from just by looking at it without before actually going into it. A lot of sound design material, sound design libraries cost quite a bit more. So, but they're operating on different principles and philosophies and different content and different aesthetics. So it's hard to actually draw a direct comparison to other sound design and I suppose hybrid libraries or anything. But yes, we'll check. Well, it's up to you. You can have a listen through this review, through this video, and see if you think it's worth the price. So we'll do this in two parts. In the first part, we'll have a look at the engine of the thing, the Octamorph engine, and how it works and how you can, kind of create your own stuff through it, whether it's using your own samples or using the samples provided to mess with them in your own way. And in the second part, we'll run through some of the presets that are provided. And so here we go. Let's get started. So this is the full version of Kontakt. Running it here, it won't load up in the libraries tab, so you're gonna need to find it in the. Where am I? No, I'm in a different. I've got it in a different directory over here. So you can find it over here in the files directory, or if you have it, you can load it up in the quick load browser, which is pretty simple to do. So as you see, Epic SoundLab, Octamorph, and you can access the instruments right here. So that's that. And let's get stuck into what it is. So as you can see here, there's a whole bunch of presets, different categories, but we have the initial presets and a user initial preset, which we'll talk about. But we'll just use the initial preset to start off and kind of check what it does. So, okay, there's a whole bunch of things happening here. So let's just play a note and see what happens. So as you can see, there's a whole bunch of things happening that we're going to break down and kind of really check out. And the big central focus here, I suppose, is the XY axis, which is right over here. And as you can see, this moves and affects the sounds in different ways. Now, this is an 8-layer kind of instrument. So let's look at what these 8 layers are and how they work, right? Now, if you have a look here, there's source and there's transition. Now, these are just names for the different layers. I'm not sure why they're named that way, but there might be a particular reason for that. But what it is, if you see A, B, C, D, these are sound sources, and they correspond to the letters on the grid. So A, B, C, D. And here, transition, we have them named after compass directions. So north, south, west, east, north, south, west, east. So the way this works is if you have, a particular sound A, it will appear over here. If you have a particular sound B, it'll appear over here, and a particular sound N will appear over here. And the whole thing kind of moves smoothly, and particularly with the use of LFOs, low-frequency oscillators. And, that's kind of how the patch gets around. So what we can do, just for now, I'll put the LFO to manual, right? So now I see where it says X and Y. That's where you can control it. Just make it manual. So that's your control and Y, right? Sorry. Yep, there you go. Okay. And we won't worry about any of those because now we've got manual control. So the LFO isn't really going to do anything until we tell it to, right? Now let's have a look at the sources, right? So here we've got source A, and there's a category and a samples, and here you get a sample menu. The category is just the Forge because this is the Forge edition. I'm not sure if they're planning on a bunch of different editions, but maybe they are. I don't know. And here you can change the tuning and you can change the volume. So what I'm going to do is I'm only going to make it so sound A plays. So I'm going to put down the volume of B, C, and D, and put down the volume of every one of these other sounds. Okay? So I hope that's easy to follow. This is the thing about this instrument is it took a bit of time to actually kind of get my head around it because it wasn't like straightforward at first. It needs a bit of reading to the manual to kind of take full advantage of it and understand what's going on. I mean, you can load up a preset and just go with it, but you might be shooting in the dark if you don't understand what's going on. And so I suppose it has a bit of a learning curve, but the result I think is absolutely worth it. So here we got sound A. So if I play sound A, right? So we're focused on sound A. If I move it across to across the north and across B, you'll hear the sound start to disappear. See what I mean? Now if I got sound B over here, reset that volume. So now it'll fade between sound A and B. And you can see that there's a little gap in the middle because it's going to start going on the northern sound, so N. So if we put that, now it'll start kind of fading between 3 different sounds. So see what I mean? And if we start, for example, filling in the other parts, so we start moving down the y-axis. So with the west, for example, we'll put the volume back up. So here's so that's the west sound. And then we start maybe going towards the east. And now we're filling out that first half a little bit. See what I mean? So you're blending between all these sounds. So this is how this whole thing works. So start going down to the south of the grids. So we'll start crossing it over here. Now if we fill in sound D, now we go back to that corner. And sound C, now we've got the full range of the whole thing, I think, yeah? Filled in all the sounds, yep. So hopefully this wasn't too long-winded, but this is kind of what the basic movement is. So when you see that thing movement, that's what it's doing. It's moving between all these different sound sources. And of course you can change what the sound source is. So if I go take it all the way back to A, I can change that dark waves to hybrid drone or infernal morph. And then I could change that B sound over here to clanging. So now it's going to sound completely different. And then that north sound into like a drop pad. See what I mean? So you have a lot of freedom in choosing the sound source, and this is just using those. And say for example, I want to use the mod wheel to manually control this. For example, I just want to control this movement right here. It's already got some CCs applied, but I can apply whatever CCs I want. So if you see here, if you right click on X, it says remove media automation that's already set, which is CC21. So you can transform CC21, or if you have it already set up, you can do that yourself on your MIDI controller, which is a whole other tutorial on its own. So be sure to ask me that if that's not making sense. But yes, here you can go learn media automation and set your own things. So now I've got the mod wheel. If you see the mod wheel moving over here. So now I can just use the mod wheel to move. Use the mod wheel to move across the x-axis. And maybe I can use the expression pedal to use down the y-axis. So now I've got the expression pedal moving, which you can't see, but there you go. So that's me controlling this the way I want to control it. Oh, that's the end of the sound. Oh, I see. Now, if what you might have heard happen here was I accidentally pressed this because it already has CC22 set, which is the ribbon control on my keyboard, which I have I don't really use it, but it's underneath my mod wheel. So let me just put that back. So that's why it kept cutting out. So there you go. So that's your manual control for that. Let me just remove that for the moment. So now I have to do this with the mouse. All right. So there you go. So that's the whole source and transition thing. Now up here, this is the second thing that really kind of does the work for the engine, is the LFO. So if you set this to LFO, this is tempo synced. So for example, it can go for the whole beat. So say for example, we're just working on the sounds of the x-axis, right? Just along we want the movement of the LFO across the x-axis. Let's set it up to this, to one bar, and let's play a note. See that? See what happens? And we can change what the waves are. This is like a little slider for waves. See how the wave corresponds to it? That's pretty... because it's kind of a crossing between these sounds, but then there's no silence in between. If I put the north sound down, let's see, have a look. Did I... let me change that sound. Interesting. It's interesting, like that it's kind of still does the same thing. Not sure why. Anyway, check out the other waves. And then you got waves like this that are kind of more erratic. You can also draw your own... Can you draw your own waves here? I thought you'd be able to. But what we can do is you can change the shape of the wave somehow with the bias slider. See what I mean? So any... It's got a really interesting kind of way of looking at it. It's interesting. It's interesting that I can't find anything about drawing your own wave shapes. And if I were looking at the manual, I don't think I saw anything about that. Where are they? Sorry, I'm just having a look at the manual here, just to make sure. If because I'm happy to stand corrected. Yada yada. Nope. It doesn't seem like there's anything, because that goes straight into those and the scripted LFOs. I mean, I suppose technically you could be using by using the manual thing, you'd be applying your own LFOs. But yeah, definitely, because I didn't think you could, but it seems like that should be an inherent function, but I'm not sure. I'm happy to stand corrected, and if I am wrong, I'll add an annotation and correct myself. I'm happy to. So yeah, so there you go. So those are the waves. So that's for the x-axis, and you can do the exact same thing for the y-axis. So we'll set that to maybe two bars. Well, it says 2 times, but like it's supposed to be like 2 bars, I'm guessing. Do that for 4. So see what happens there? It starts to move more erratically across the whole spectrum as per the LFOs that we've assigned. So you put some more erratic LFOs with more different biases and different timings. Or you can do something like this. And you can make it really kind of slow. So see what I mean? So there's quite a variety of things that you can do here, just with switching between sources and transitions and all across that whole field, right? So put it back to 1-1. And see, you can do this kind of to mess with it in between, but it'll still do its own thing. So this is more when you have manual control to play with the X and Y sliders. And if you see this little R, it's a retrigger button. So it kind of retriggers the LFO if you play new notes. So right now, if I'm playing more than one note, it'll still kind of come within the LFO. Let's make this a little simple, actually a little more complicated. We'll kind of hear the. And if I add notes as I play, they'll still all come underneath the same LFO, and so you won't break the LFO rhythmic nature of it. See what I mean? So now if I retrigger, it'll retrigger the whole LFO every time I play new notes. Oops. And you can do the x-axis as well. So without that, see what I mean? So some pretty useful stuff to do whatever you want with it, and that's what you get just from the sound source. And this is just the initial patch. I didn't even load up any of the presets just to do that. So this is the initial patch that you can just kind of load up and go, right? So it's pretty great. And you hear the results. Obviously, the results are very specific to the sounds that are in there already, but the engine can work with any of your own samples, which we'll get into in a little bit. But yeah, meanwhile, we'll have a look at the other ones. One of the other things that you have over here is random this and random all. So random this will randomize the parameters of this sound source. As you can see, just gives me random ones. And random all, I'm guessing, will just randomize all of them. Random all again. And I've just changed them. Yep, there you go. So you can do this over here as well. So you do a random all. And you quickly get a whole bunch of other sounds. And because they all kind of pitch shift differently with the tuning, then you just get this concoction of things. So it's pretty cool. And then here's your mute and your solo button. So if you just want to solo one thing, which I should have done at the beginning, but there you go. Or you can just mute layers and stuff. So yeah, so that's pretty standard. So next we have just these Doppler and resonance control. So Doppler here, if you have a look, so let's just play this right now without the Doppler effect. Okay, and we'll put the Doppler effect a little bit up. So it kind of makes it seem like it's whizzing by, you know? A flyby, if you will. Which, hey, is one of the categories of the presets. There you go. And if I put it even further up, kind of really increase the effect. So there you go. And the resonate is let me just randomize these again. So it's hard to explain. Let me just show you. So this increases the pitch of this resonance, this overtone that you can apply on top of the samples, on top of the sound sources. So, do you hear that effect? It's like that's something that you get with resonant synthesizer instruments. Kind of sounds like a transformer singing, you know, like Optimus Prime, but you know, just talking to other transformers when he's not trying to be Optimus Prime. You know what I mean? Actually, this sounds more like Decepticons. Never mind. So now you know how to make a Transformer sound. Just really overdo the resonance on it. So yeah. So these last two controls, they're sort of for these like riser builders, right? Now let me just show you. So if you put in the envelope rate, for example, and play a note, and then actually put in the amount of octaves you want to rise. That's a pretty slow riser, but say for example I do it for 1 bar. So see how it rises first? And then you leave it. It's just like if we put on the metronome and the click is on, and we just press play. See how we've risen? And then we go maybe four octaves. And if we want to make it for like 2 bars, go 2, 3, 4. Let's see how it does this whole rising animation. And we can kind of make it a downer as well. So that provides a really kind of easy and simple way to design your own risers and downers, and it's really interesting. It's very different because usually a sound design library will provide you with downers and risers, and if you wanted to make it, you have to go through some editing and kind of start pitching the sound yourself, and maybe put it through a sampler, whatever it was. There's a lot that you'd have to do, but this is a really nice, simple way to do this. And I really quite enjoy it. So I might start building some more of my own risers. And as you know, I don't know if how many of you guys do this, but sometimes depending on the project, you might have to go through a period before the project really kind of gets going, and kind of build a bunch of sounds. If it's going to be electronically based, or use a lot of textures and that kind of thing. If you're combing through those while you're writing, it can really slow down the writing process. It could really slow down the writing process. But if you have a bunch beforehand, it's like, I think I'll know this. It's so you have them in the back of your mind, and they're appropriate to your project. Once you get writing, you'd be like, okay, I'll pull in this riser that I designed a week ago, and just put it in there. And this makes that process, I don't know, a lot more engaging, I suppose. And it's really fun. Honestly, okay, it's really fun seeing your instrument react to you. You know what I mean? Because a lot of the time, it's like, if you ever open up a piano and just kind of look at the hammers while you're playing, I mean, if you're standing up to it, or if you see someone else playing and you see the hammers react to it, it's really fun. Or if you're playing an acoustic instrument like a guitar or whatever, and you really feel the instrument interacting with you. In the same way, I really like an instrument like this that interacts with you, So that's pretty cool. So that's the engine, but we don't need to worry about that at this point. So we can move on. So, I've been talking for too long already. Very quickly, these you have a bunch of effects over here, so you can. This is standard Kontakt equalizer. And you can, just, I'm not going to tell you what an equalizer is. You know what an equalizer is. You have a reverb as well, so you can really kind of affect the sound even more. So say for example, and they have so this is a convolution reverb. So they have their own impulses, which they've added. which is always great. I think that's one of the more interesting parts of sample libraries and Kontakt is when people put in their own impulse responses that they've captured, and those impulse responses are usually available to you to use. If not directly through the file structure, then you can hit the wrench and kind of copy the preset, and it'll copy the IR with it. So you can use it in anything else if you want, which is pretty cool, you know? I like it. So here, for example, you have concert hall. If I put it down to like ghost, I don't know what ghost sounds like. Wow. And if you make it dry, really wet. Yeah, that's pretty freaky. Let's randomize this again. Maybe like different ghosts. Wow, this is really bassy. Then you get stuff like EM field, I don't know what that is. Let's randomize this again. So the reverb really helps in stuff like this because it kind of leaves a really nice tail. And if you're writing, because as you're hearing, a lot of these sound sources would really fit into these kind of like dramatic thrillers, you know, and kind of really fits underneath some really tense dialogue, you know. Specifically, these sound sources that the guys at Epic SoundLab have provided, and you know that's pretty cool. And it's always the kind of thing where these sounds will kind of reverberate into the next scene or the next conversation or the next cue kind of thing, which is very needed because then you kind of need this handoff of sounds. So that's pretty cool. Right, let me just randomize this again and see what else we have. And change the waves. All right, so we have tremolo. And here we can, like tremolos. Actually, let's make it manual so we can just hear the tremolo on one kind of sound. Let's do this. So the tremolo, if we put in the rate and the depth a little bit, and we, you know, specify the shape. And of course, you can control this with something, so you can put the rate up with the mod wheel. I like this. The tremolo can be used for more than just, you know, more than just a standard tremolo effect. I mean, and you mess with it and mess with the rate. Even you can mess with the rate here as well. So put them both, like the rate and the depth, to the mod wheel. Actually, no, I like without the mod wheel for the depth. So you know, quite a lot that can be done here. It's not what I asked for. There you go. So, last but not least is the master. So, this is kind of like a master tuning for everything. So, if you play this. So, you know, after you've got the balances right in between, say you've sat there and carefully crafted every different sound source and how it sounds in relation to each other, then you can just do a major tune and just see what that sounds like. And then you've got attack and release and major volume, and here you can just reinitialize, and you can scramble. So this scrambles like everything. So you had these randomized buttons. This to specifically randomize sound sources, but this scrambles everything in terms of like the LFOs and the sound sources. So there you go. So that's I think that's pretty cool. Like I love little scramble effects in libraries like this, where there are a lot of things to control, and sometimes it's just fun. It's the same kind of thing in Omnisphere, for example. You have a shuffle in the browser, which is pretty cool. So you don't have to go through the same kind of list every time you're looking for new sounds. You can just shuffle and it's like, throw me something new. No, I don't know if Omnisphere doesn't matter. This is not about Omnisphere, but I'm just talking about the shuffle feature in Omnisphere was revolutionary. And I'm thinking, why doesn't everything have a shuffle feature? And similarly, I think something like this in the appropriate context, a scramble or a dice feature kind of thing, a randomize everything feature, can come up with some really interesting results, and then you can just save that as a new patch. All right, so here we're going to talk about creating your own patches out of your own samples. So for here, we've loaded up the user initial patch, and there's a whole process detailed in the manual about how to do this. But I'll just go through it quickly so you can, just kind of have a look at it, right? So basically what they've done here is in the user patch, they've given you one sample. If you hit the wrench, you'll see you've got one sample because there's nothing else. It's one sample map there, right? Nothing too complicated. Let's put this down. And what you would be doing is you would be importing your own samples in there. So as you can see, you've got group A, group B, group C, group D, and the north, south, west, east, and they're empty at the moment. And I kind of just understood why they would be calling it sources and transitions, is because this is one of those things that dawned on me as I was talking about it. Because I said earlier that I didn't know what it was, but there you go. Because you got a source A and a source B, and between them, to move between source A and B is a transition across the axis. So the x-axis or the y-axis. So yeah, so there you go. So you learn something as you're doing it. Anyway, so that's the point. That's what I was saying. So what they've done is just in group A, they've provided you with one sample. And what you do is, let's import our own samples. You'd right click it in the group editor and just exchange sample. So here you get the browser, and you can choose some other samples. So for example, I will choose something from a different library, right? Let's say another hybrid library, like something like Project Alpha. And I'll take one of their samples. And the pretty cool thing is, just like Project Alpha and Project Bravo and Oracle and these things, Octamorph supplies its samples in open waveform, so you can take those samples outside of Kontakt and use them. Anyway, that's besides the point. So you use their drones. So let's build up a drone. And then you can copy this and paste it and then move it up. Ugh, my bad. My bad. We want to paste it. Where do you want to paste it? Let's paste it here. There you go. And you can move it. And we can exchange that sample, right? With something from Project Bravo, for example. Samples, another drone. Something like this. And maybe we'll copy that and paste it again. Damn it. There you go. And then paste it again and move it. There you go. It's a bit tricky inside this. And let's just exchange a sample with something else. Say, for example, something from Stressoff Samples Oracle. Now, what do we got? Stress sampling, Oracle, and maybe 2 of their drones. So samples, drones, and I'll copy that and then paste it and put it in another zone, another drone. Okay, so now we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 things. No, they won't show up as those names, but they're going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. To actually change that, there's a whole process detailed in the manual about how to do that by changing the NKA file in the folder. So just have a look at the manual for that, because that's a whole other topic. But I'm not so worried about that at the moment. Anyway, so then you got user 1. So I'm going to go A is user 1, B is user 2, C is user 3, D is user 4, right? What you have to do actually, before that, my bad, is copy those across so these would actually work. You know what I mean? There you go. So now you're going to get 4 different distinct sounds. And I'm going to just play it. Let's play it. Have a look. Oh, this is pretty loud. And we haven't filled in the north, south, east, west things yet, but then you can get the idea. And then you can just populate this with your own samples, more of your own samples. And even if you just, what you wanted to do was have this engine to run samples from other hybrid libraries or other traditional libraries or other effects libraries, maybe you can resample Symphobia for your own music and then put it back in here and just really run crazy. There's a lot of possibility, and that's what I love. I love possibility. Sometimes it's overwhelming, and sometimes there's way too much that you can do that you get lost and you don't do any of it because you're like, what do I do? But that's okay. That's part of the challenge of being an artist. So with something as profound as that, so like, I want to leave you on a high note. So we'll be back for part 2, and where we'll look at the presets that are presented with Octamorph 4th edition. And just some of the things that are already made and that really demonstrate a lot of the topics that we've talked about today. All right, so see us back for part 2.